Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the law of cosines. So the law of sines, as you can remember, was a proportion, where if we knew a pair and we wanted to find another letter that wasn't in the pair, we could use a proportion to solve it. That is the easiest way to solve a non-right triangle. But that doesn't always work. So we also have to have law of cosines. You'll notice the three formulas I have written down. They are all basically the same. What letter it starts with, it always ends with, and the other two letters make up in between. This is a formula you're going to pick based on whether you're trying to solve. So if I'm going to try to solve for either side A or angle A, I'm going to use the first equation. If I'm trying to solve for a B, I'm going to use the second, or a C, the third. As a reminder, remember when we label our sides, we always go across from the angle. So that's side A, this is side B, and this is side C. So looking at example 1, I want to find side A. That is this one right here. Since I want to find side A, I am going to use the equation with A squared equals. So I'm going to write the equation, or the formula, A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of A. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and label my other side so I know which one's which. This is my B, this is my C. Now I'm going to just plug in. So I get A squared equals 11 squared plus 9 squared minus 2 times 11 times 9 times a cosine of 76 degrees. Again, remember your calculator needs to be in degrees. So from here, anytime we have one of the letters, we're trying to find a side length, these are going to be the easy ones to solve, because we are simply going to type all of this into our calculator all in one step. So you're going to type it just like you see it. When I do that, I'm going to get A squared equals 154.099. Save that in my calculator, and then you're going to take the square root of the answer. And now I'm going to round to the nearest tenth. So A is 12.4. Now when I'm finding an angle, so let's look at letter B, things get a little more complicated. So since I am trying to find angle C, I am going to choose the C squared equation. So from here, again, I'm going to come over here and label all of my sides. This is A, this is B, this is C. So it will be 18 squared equals 14 squared plus 28 squared. Now, since C is not my hypotenuse, because these are not right angles, C will not always be the largest side. So just keep that in mind. So from here, we're going to do a few different steps. So the first one, let's just type in our calculator 18 squared. Okay. That's going to get me 384. Next, we are going to type that in our calculator. 14 squared plus 28 squared. That gets me 980. minus. Okay. Here I'm going to type all of this in my calculator. That ends up being 784. Bring down the cosine of C. So negative 784 is the coefficient of the cosine of C. So this is really like saying 384 equals 980 minus 784x. I cannot combine the 980 and the 784 because they don't have the same the same variable with it. So the only other thing I can do is go ahead and get rid of this 980. So I'm going to subtract it from both sides. That ends up being negative 656 equals, bring down the negative sign with the 784, cosine of C. So to get rid of that coefficient, we are going to just divide by it. Now, you can type that in your calculator. You could reduce it. I'm not going to right now because really there's no need because our calculator in the end is going to take care of it. I am going to change them both to positives since I know a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So remember from when we did this with right triangles, when I am trying to find the angle, I need to hit the second key. So this is going to come over here and I'm going to end up with C is going to equal cosine to the negative 1 of that fraction, which was 656 over 784. And I'm going to type that in my calculator, second cosine, that fraction, and I should get C is 33.2 degrees. So I'm going to do one more of these examples. I'm going to go ahead and go down and do C before we move on to example 2. So if I look at C, you'll notice there's no letters. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to label my triangle with A, B, and C so I can find or figure out what I need to find. So my final goal is figuring out angle C. So to figure out angle C, I need to know side A and side B. That's the only way I can figure out angle C. I need to have all three sides. Well, I don't. So this is going to be a two-step process. The first thing I need to do is figure out what side A is. I can't find a side length or an angle until I know every single side length if I'm using Law of Cosines. So step 1, let's find A. So I'm going to use the A squared equation equals B squared plus C squared minus 2 times B times C times the cosine of angle A, which was 72 degrees. Okay, so this one, remember when we are solving for A squared or a side length, it's just we're going to plug it all in one step. So I end up with A squared equals 531.383. Again, take the square root of it. So A is 23.1. Now the good news is once I've used Law of Cosines, I don't have to use it again. I can switch over to Law of Sines, which is much easier to solve. Because now I have a pair. I have a pair of A's. So I can use my pair of A's to help me find angle C. So it'll be sine of 72 over 23.1 equals sine of C, because that's what I'm trying to find, over 21. So review from yesterday, we're going to cross multiply. So that's 21 sine of 72 equals 23.1 sine of C. Divide both sides by 23.1. And then to find C, or in this case theta, we're going to do sine to the -1 of whatever that number was when I typed 21 sine of 72 divided by 23.1. And I end up with 59.8 degrees. So a lot of that is basically what we would do for example 2. Okay, we would use Law of Cosines to find the first thing I need to find. And then from there, I'm going to use Law of Sines to find everything else. Or the fact that all 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. If you have any questions, please let me know.